Imagine telling your computer to repeat a task 100 times without writing the code 100 times. That's exactly what loops do in Python. So in this video, we'll be discussing what is a for loop, iterating over a range, iterating over a string, the while loop, the nested loop, how we can use break and continue in our loops, and some examples and common errors. So let us start with understanding what is a loop. So the word loop itself means something which goes on and on and on, right? Something which repeats. So when you have to repeat a line of code multiple times, like maybe you have to print hello world or just hello 5 times on the screen. So what do? You go for printing the statement 5 times, right? So to overcome that, to make your task easy, we have a loop called for loop. So for loop is used when we know how many times we want to repeat something. So because you have a number in your mind, thus you want to repeat this particular line 5 times or maybe 10 times on the screen, that's when you can use the for loop. So for everything we have a syntax in Python, right? So the same goes for loop as well. There is a syntax you need to follow for loop. So the syntax for the for loop is you write for I in range, the number of times you want to repeat the loop. So maybe if you want to repeat it for 10 times, you're going to write 10 and then put the line you want to repeat multiple times inside it. So we'll be discussing the whole syntax in detail, but let us just run and see what happens to this code once we run it. So you see the same line got displayed 10 times on the output screen without you typing it 10 times. Now, in the whole syntax, the for is a keyword which tells that, this is a loop. And then I is a variable because you can put any name for your variable. You can use any name instead of I here. You can also say repeat or any name you want to give here. Now in is you're telling that this is going to happen in the range. So range is telling the Python that this is going to happen in the range of so and so number. So in the range you will have like three numbers. The first is where you will write the number where to start, and then you will write where the loop is supposed to end, and then the steps, like how many step it is skipping or how many times, so if you want to skip the loop in between. So by default, if you are not giving the start, it will take the start as 0, and the end, whatever number you gives, will stop one number before. So maybe if you really wanted to stop at 10, you will have to give 11 so that it stops at 10. Now step is what numbers you want to skip in between. So after 0, if you want to go to 1, so it's like a difference of one number, right? So you're simply putting 1 here. So after 0, it skips one number and then go to another number, that is 2. It just takes one step ahead. So that's why it is called as a step. Now, this repeat variable is representing this particular range. That means every iteration of this gets stored inside this variable. So if I have to, represent the number, what number is being right now, what iteration is happening right now, so I can use that variable repeat here to show the iteration. So the repeat is storing numbers all from 0 to 10. We have given 11, but it will automatically stops at 10. That's the rule, or that's the syntax of it. So you see, because we have given our start as 0, the loop started from 0, it stopped at 10 because we have given 11, and the step it took was one step ahead, right? Now you can also take your loop backwards. So what if you want to, represent the count from 10 to maybe 1 or 0? So you will be writing your number as 10 because that's the start, and because you want to stop at 1, you will write 0 because it stops one number before, right? And because from 10 you want to go to 9, so you're taking a step backward, right? So in that case, you will take your step as -1. So 10 minus 1 is 9. So your next iteration is going to be 9. So let us see how is this going to look like. So it started from 10, and though we have given our end at 0, it has stopped as 1, which is one number before that. So this is how for loop works on range. Now let us do a small example where for loop is being used. So the example is called as sum of the numbers. I will just put this whole in the comment line, and the next code we are going to write is the sum of the numbers. So let us understand the logic of sum of the numbers, like what is happening. So you want to represent the sum of 10 numbers, that is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 and so on, and this should happen until 10. So because it's kind of like a loop, right, it is repeating the same thing again and again. So this whole thing, the final answer, you want to store inside the variable sum. So we are creating a variable as sum, but you can see that it is a keyword and we cannot use keywords as our variables. So I'm storing it as sum1. So initially, as we don't know what is our outcome going to be or what is our sum going to be, we are assuming it to be 0 or keeping it 0 at the moment. And also because adding 0 to any number doesn't make any difference, we are keeping it as 0 at the moment. Then we need to use the loop, right? So because we want to add the numbers from 1 to 10, so we are using the range of 1. We want to start from 1, so we are starting with 1, and because we want to stop at 10, we are writing 11. And uh, also that, the start and your skip is optional. So even if you don't give your start, it automatically takes it as 0. And if you don't give your step or your skip, it will assume it to be 1. So here, if you don't even give your step, it will automatically take your step as 1. So after 1, it is immediately going to 2. So yeah, we have given our range that we want to add all the numbers from 1 to 10, right? And now you are taking an iteration. And now you are taking the indentation. So just like if condition, we have put a colon at the end of the loop and it automatically starts the iteration here, mentioning or representing that everything inside the iteration belongs to the loop. Okay, now what is happening inside the loop is the variable sum, which was 0 initially, has to change that whatever was its value earlier, which was 0, has to keep on adding the I, because I is starting from 1 to 10, right? So it should add all the numbers from 1 to 10. And because the sum is already 0, so it doesn't make any difference. So in the first iteration, what happens is it is going to be 0 plus 1, which is nothing but 1. And now the value of sum is 1. Then it will be 1 plus 2, because now the value of I is 2, which will make it 3. Then the value of sum is 3. It will be 3 plus 3, which will make it 6. So this way it will reach until 10, and by the time it reach 10, it will automatically stop the loop because the range has, it has completed the whole range. Now we want to represent this as just one value of the sum. So in that case, you will come out of the loop. But if you want to represent each and every iteration, you will put it inside the iteration. So let me just show you what happens if you put it inside the loop and what if you put it outside the loop. Now, because this is inside the loop and you want this to happen 10 times, so this print statement is going to represent every iteration which happened. So initially the value of sum was 1, then it went to 3, then 6, then 10, and it is representing every iteration. Now, what if you only want the final answer? Then you will not put this print inside the loop, come out of the loop, and it is just going to represent the final value of sum, which is 55. So this is also very important, the indentation. So if you're following the indentation, that means it is going to happen inside the loop and it is going to happen multiple times. But if you only want it to be just once, then it is going to be outside the loop. Now you can also perform your loops on strings as well, which is called as iterating over a string. So I'll again put this whole into the comment line, doing another example, which is a loop with a string. Now, what if you have a variable which is storing a string inside it? So there is a name, maybe Aisha, Now, because it has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 character, right? So each character will be stored inside a variable. So you can give any name to that variable, just like I. So because we are representing the character, I am using the keyword ch here. And because we are performing this loop not on a range but on a string, we'll use the string name here, which was name. Again, using a colon to end our loop, and the indentation automatically starts. So what do we want to do? We just want to print each and every character of our string. So every character is stored inside the variable ch. That's it. So running it will represent every character of our string in different line. But what if you don't want to represent in multiple lines? Then you will use the end method here, and just say that if you want to have a space in between, you will put a space. Now you will see the difference between both of them. So earlier it was representing each character in different line, but with the help of end method, they are all side by side. So that's what end method helps us with. So this is how for loop works, where you know the exact number in your mind. That's where you can use the for loop. Now moving on to the next type of the loop, which is while loop. So let me put this into the comment line first of all, and now we are discussing or starting with the while loop. Now, while loop is where you don't have an exact number in your mind. Instead, you have a condition. So let us take an example. So you want someone to, clap 5 times. So now you have an exact number. You can simply say that for I in range clap, and you can give so and so range. But you have another scenario where you don't know the exact number where you want them to clap. So you say that clap while there is music. So here you don't have an exact number because you don't know how long that music is going to be. It can be 1 minute or 2 minutes. And even if you know that it is going to be for 2 minutes, you don't know how long someone can clap within that 2 minutes, right? So in that cases, you can use while loop where you don't know the exact number, but instead you know the condition. Okay, so the syntax of while loop also remains the same. You put the keyword while, and then you put whatever is your condition, you end it with a colon, and then the indentation starts. Okay, and because it is a condition, and your condition, whenever it is true, displaying or working on whatever is inside the loop, right? So if you put something inside while true, it goes into an infinite loop because the condition is always true. So whenever you want a loop to go infinite, or maybe it's kind of like a forever loop. So whenever you want any line to go forever, that's when you take the while true, because the condition is always true and it is never stopping the loop. But if you want this loop to stop at some point after the condition, has met, or when the condition is going false, that's when that's where the loop automatically stops. So here also we need a variable in while loop which is storing the iteration and everything. So the syntax of while loop is, first you create a variable and give it the value, the initial value where the loop is going to start. Maybe you want the loop to start at 1, and here you give a condition where you want that loop to stop. So you want the loop to stop at 10, so you will giving less than 11, because less than 11 is 10, but you can also give less than or equal to 10 as well. That means it is somewhere equal to 10. So you can go both the ways. Less than 11 will automatically be 10, and less than or equal to 10 will stop at 10. Now here, because this condition is always being satisfied, because the value of I was 1 and I is obviously always less than 10, right? 1 is always less than 10, so it again goes into the infinite loop. But okay, just let us run it and see what happens here. So you see it again went into an infinite loop. So what if you don't want this to happen? In that case, you will increment the value. That is, your kind of like giving it a step, just like in for loop. So you are telling that the value of I has to be changed with 1. So earlier, whatever was the value of I, it has to be increased by 1. But if you want it to be increased by 2, you can do that as well. Okay, so here let us represent count, and we are writing, we want to represent I, right? So here it doesn't go into an infinite loop, because what is happening right now is initially it was 1 and you wanted it to be increased by 1. So it went to 2, then 3, then 4. And when it reached 10 or 11, it is not satisfying the condition anymore, right? When I becomes 11, 11 is not less than 10. So because this condition goes false at that point, it stops the loop at 11. Okay, so this is how while loop works. When you give it a true, it goes into an infinite loop. Also, when you don't put this line, which is called as incrementing your variable, then also your loop goes into an infinite loop. So this line is very important in your while loop. Now coming to the break and continue, how you can use break and continue keyword in your loops. So there is a for loop. Okay, so let us go back to our earlier for loop we have written. Okay, here it is. So I'm just removing the comment lines. So we wanted it to repeat from 10 to 1, right? Now, at some point, so let us change the range from 1 to 11. And because it is going upwards, we are simply giving the skip or step as 1. So this is going to represent all the numbers from 1 to 10. Now, at some point, I want to break the loop. So we have to give a if condition here. So we are telling that when the value of repeat goes to 5, you simply want to break the loop. Break means it automatically comes out the loop. It just breaks the loop. That's it. But if it is not 5, you simply want to print the value of I, right? So this, because it is not following the intention of if condition, it is going to print all the values of this range. And also you see it is following the intention of for loop. So this print is inside for loop but not inside the if condition. So it will not follow if condition. So when it reaches 5, it will break the loop automatically, or else it will keep on printing the values. So it is printing all the values. Okay, so our variable was repeat but not I. So let us change the variable to repeat here, and when I run it, you see it is printing all the lines from 1 to 4, because we said print repeat, but when it reaches 5, it has to break the loop. So that's how the break works. But what if you want to continue the loop but only want to, skip a specific number? So in that case, you will just write continue here. So you're simply asking it to continue the whole loop as usual, but only at the moment of 5, you want to skip that particular 5. So let us run it and see the difference. So you see the whole range has been represented from 1 to 10, but only when it was 5, it has skipped it. So it just, skipped 5 and continued the rest of the number. So that's the difference between break and continue. Now let us use one more real example of while, because I think we have just done one example on while loop. So let us do one more example using while true. So because it is true, it goes into an infinite loop. So whatever we put inside it, is going to happen forever. So this code is to, take the password from the user, and if the user has entered the correct password, we are granting them the access. So let us create a variable as password, and because we are taking it as an input, we are using the input function here and asking the user to enter the password. Now, there is a condition that if the password, so we know the password, right? So we are saying that if the password is matching with Python 123. So because we know that, the password was Python 123, so our variable was PW. So PW is the input which was taken from the user. So if that input is matching with Python 123, which is the actual password, in that case, we are allowing the access. So we are saying that access granted. And because it is an infinite loop, it will never stop, it will keep on asking inputs from you again and again. Let's just see what happens here. So once you give the password, you have entered the password Python 123. So even though it was a correct password, it keep on asking you the same thing again and again. Like even if I put a wrong password, it will again go, into a infinite loop and just keep asking you the password again and again, because the condition we have given is true. So it goes into an infinite loop. But what if, you want to break this loop at a point? That is when the password is correct. There is no need to take the password again, right? So at this point, you're simply breaking the loop. So here you're telling that if the password was Python123 entered by the user, we're granting the access and also breaking the loop at this point. So this is how you can use the break keyword. Okay, now moving on to the next topic, which is the nested loop. So just like we have done nested if in our previous video, which is a if inside another if, right? So same goes with the loops as well. So a loop inside another loop is called as a nested loop. So let us do an example where we are doing a multiplication table. So here you want to create a multiplication table for multiple numbers. So let me show you the multiplication table of one number first of all, and then with the help of nested loop, we can represent multiplication table of multiple numbers. So for I in range, but you can use any variable again in place of I, and because mostly the multiplication is, represented for 10 times, so we will use the range as 1 comma 11. And what do you want to represent here? The number. Okay, so we have to use a variable as number as well, whose multiplication table you want to create. So maybe that is 5. So how do you represent the multiplication? So you write 5 times 1 is equal to 5, right? And instead of I, it keeps changing the numbers to 2, 3, and that also affects your answer. So 5 is nothing but our variable number. So that's what I want to represent here. Then the x is a string, so I will put it in the quotes. And then again, I is nothing but the iteration, right? Because in your multiplication table, your next line is going to be 5 times 2 is equal to 10. So because it went to 2, your answer is also changing here, right? So it is kind of like a value of I. I was 1, now I is 2, then it will be 3. So everything is being stored inside the variable I, which is representing the range from 1 to 11. So here we can simply use I, and because the next is the equal to symbol, which is a string, again I've put it in the quotes. Now the final answer will be num times I. So number is 5 times whatever will be the value of I will affect our final answer. So because we want this to happen for 10 times, we have given that range, and you can see that it has created us a multiplication table of 5 because the value we had given for the number was 5, right? But what if you want to create a multiplication table of multiple numbers, like maybe from 1 to 5, it should create the multiplication table for all the numbers. So in that case, using a loop, you're writing for I in range 1 comma 6 because you want to represent multiplication table of 5 numbers. Again, end it with the colon, and you can see that it has gone into the indentation. So because we have already used a variable as I, you can use the variable as j. And the range remains the same because for every number you want to represent the multiplication table from 1 to 10, right? But here the print statement changes, and let us put it inside the for loop. Now because the value of I is first going to be 1, so it should create the multiplication table of 1. So it will be I times j. That's it. I times j. So because your value of I is 1 first of all, so it will create a multiplication table of 1. Then the value of I changes to 2, so it will create multiplication of 2, then 3, then 4 and 5, and it will automatically stop the loop. So earlier I have told you the use of end method. So I'm using the end method here. And because after every table I want to give an empty line, so I'll just print an empty print used an empty. So now let us move to the final for video, which is the common beginner mistakes. So the first mistake you might make is to not end your for loop or while loop with a colon, which will also affect your indentation. So always make sure you end your loop with a colon, and which will also correct your indentation automatically. And always make sure you use increment operator inside your while loop. So let me put it as a code. So make sure you always use the increment value inside your variable, or else it goes into an infinite loop. That's the very common mistake most beginners make. So this is also called as updating your variable in your while loop. And then the another common mistake we make or beginners make is that not using your break inside the condition. So if you're not using your break at the correct point or the correct indentation, it is going to mess up your code. Okay, so these are the few things which you have to keep in your mind. So I hope now you understand loops, one of the most powerful concepts in programming. And in the next video, we'll learn about functions. So subscribe to continue the Python full course step by step.